My name is James Carter. I'm 39 years old, standing tall at 6 feet 3 inches and weighing 220 pounds. I have sandy hair, green eyes, and a muscular build that I maintain through regular workouts and hands-on work remodeling houses, most of which I do myself. I'm divorced after 14 years of marriage. My wife, Molly, was the chairperson of a fundraising campaign for our local library, but instead of focusing solely on the fundraiser, she and her co-chair, a lawyer named Ryan Hayes, decided to spend some of their time together in a much more personal way. I found out the hard way. I walked in on them. He was buried in her dress pushed up over her hips as she leaned over our kitchen table, our table in our house. It happened one morning at 9:15. I had left for work earlier at 8:30, but had to turn back after realizing I'd forgotten the plans for a remodeling project on my home office desk. I thought Molly would be busy with her fundraiser planning, so I figured I'd slip in, grab the plans, and leave without disturbing her. I couldn't have been more wrong. So as not to disturb her meeting, I saw the guy's car in the driveway. I just slipped around back and thought I'd use the kitchen sliding glass door to enter the house and go into my office, right off the kitchen, get my plans, and leave the same way. Turns out, they were using the kitchen. I rounded the outside corner of the house, came to the sliding door, looked in, and there they were, banging away with their backs to me. I stood there watching. I could hear them talking to one another. "Like that, do ya, little lady?" he asked, panting slightly. "Oh, yes. I love it. You are amazing. Does Pencilhead come home for lunch today?" he asked, not missing a beat. "Oh no, he has a lunch appointment with his client." "Now, don't stop," she uttered. He obliged. I slid the door open and stepped inside the room, standing less than 5 feet from them. They did not hear me. They were making so much noise themselves, and I stood there. I just reached between their bodies, grabbed him, and pulled him off her. I held his neck with my right hand and hit him with my left hand, laying his nose over onto his cheek, blood squirting. He fell to the ground. He'd not spoken a word. "Oh, James," she screamed. "Molly, get your stuff and get out. We're done." "Move it," I said. "James, I'm sorry. I don't know what." "Move or I'll move you. Choose which right now," I warned. She'd never heard me speak like this. Her lawyer lover was on his way to his feet with anger written in blood on his face. I hit him in his face again, now breaking his cheekbone. He was out for the count. "I'm so sorry, honey. Please," she started. I grabbed a handful of her hair, wadded up her dress and back, and walked her to the front door, opening it and moving her to the porch. I closed and locked the door, bolting it and using the safety chain. Then I walked back over to her lover and rolled him outside the kitchen door, into the backyard. He lay there with no pants on. They were inside the house, behind the locked glass door. I rifled through his pockets, threw his keys in a parts bin in my office, removed his billfold, and hid it in my office too. Then I wadded his pants, suit coat, socks, and underwear and put them in the washing machine with 2 cups of bleach and started it on the hot water only cycle. I did all this while I was waiting for the cops. I had dialed 911, told them to send officers, that I just found my wife and her lover having sex and there was a fight. They were both outside the house, but that I was inside and would wait for the police indoors. "Are there weapons involved?" the dispatcher asked. "Nope, just fists," I responded. "I think I broke my hand, and I think his nose is broken. My wife is in front and he is in back right now." The lawyer, Mr. Hayes, filed charges against me, and I was arrested a few days later for assault and battery and theft of personal property. It didn't matter to me. I was all in anyhow, and if I didn't work, she didn't eat. That was fine with me. I'd gladly sit this out in jail. Besides, I'd had time to spend the $230 in his billfold on frivolous stuff I thought I wanted. His credit cards never were found. He, her lover, was pretty seriously hurt as it turned out, and my hand was broken. A couple of years later, the news that he'd become addicted to OxyContin was music to my ears. He'd gotten hooked on pain meds. I spent 60 days in jail while the trial went on, refusing to bail myself out or to accept anyone else's bail offering. At the end of the trial, the judge sentenced me to 1 year in county lockup with 2 months already having been served. I smiled at the judge and never looked back at her as I left the courtroom. I had been operating my business by the skin of my teeth. We were always close with money. Times were hard and I was barely surviving. So it didn't take long, with no savings and no income, for her to fall behind with the bills. Every extra dime I could scrape together went for tools, materials, things I needed for the job I was on. I was building my business, but it was far from built. I thought we were in this together, determined to build something for ourselves. We didn't want to live paycheck to paycheck, working for someone else. We wanted to own our business, to make our own success. Molly handled the books, so she knew full well that we had no extra funds. I don't know what drove her to betray me like that, but it shattered everything between us. Maybe it was his charm as a lawyer, or perhaps she was feeling vulnerable after 14 years of marriage, but I was vulnerable too, and I stayed faithful to her. I'll never know if she cheated with anyone else, but honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. In the end, we both walked away from the marriage, empty-handed. We lost the house, my tools, and my 2 work trucks. Molly kept her old Ford. We couldn't afford to file for divorce, so we just went our separate ways, broken and without the future we had once envisioned. My folks were extremely upset with us. They wanted grandchildren, and I wasn't giving them any. My brothers, I had 3, all had kids, but they wanted some from us all. My dad broke off communication with me, disowning me for being a brute. My mom must have agreed, because she never indicated I was welcome or that she wanted to see me or talk to me. So, I spent my year in jail and was released penniless. I still had job skills and did find a job right away. One of my competitors always had admired my work and offered me work when I asked, without hesitation. I was so grateful for that. After a few months, I found out Molly was in the next town over. I spent some of my meager earnings and filed for divorce against her. She never fought it, and it went through in 6 months, the mandatory minimum. A couple of years later, my folks were killed in a violent car wreck. It was foggy and they didn't slow down. They hit a semi who was just creeping along in the fog, and then a second semi slammed into them. They died in a fiery crash. My brothers became wealthy men. They received cash, stocks, worldly goods, mother's jewelry, several rental properties, and I got a symbolic remembrance too. I inherited a house. It was a rundown fire-trap slum house in a northeastern Colorado small town. The value was $7,000, according to the inventory in the will. It was symbolic, I figured, because it was my folks telling me what they thought of our relationship with me, of me, rundown and worthless. However, the old house did have a renter, Sophie Cantor, and her 3-year-old daughter Ella. She was a late 20s widow, whose husband had been killed in Iraq about the same week as their daughter was being born. The town that the house was in was 80 miles from where I lived. My dad had foreclosed on someone and took the house away, and then he rented it out, never putting any money into it to fix it up, just collecting rent. I drove over to the town and met my renter and saw my property. I was shocked at the squalor and poor conditions. She was paying $450 per month plus utilities. The heat bill was astronomical because the windows were no good and there was no insulation. The place was a heap. I told Sophie that as of today, she was not paying rent. I also said that if it was okay, I'd begin extensive remodeling and they'd have to live in part of the house while I was working on another part. She was floored, but said, "Sure, that'd be great, James." I had to have materials, so I asked my boss if he'd let me have the leftovers from the jobs we were doing. There were always a lot of waste and leftover materials. It beat having to haul them to the dump, so he agreed. I also asked him for permission to work 3 to 13-hour days per week and take the rest of the week and work on my rental house. He agreed to try it, though he was skeptical. I went to the local bank and was able to get a $3,500 loan using the rental house as collateral. Actually, the lot and the sewer and water taps were worth $25,000 or more if a guy were building a new property. So, I convinced the banker to let me have a little cash so I could buy some things that I couldn't get from our job sites. It would be tight, but I'd do the best I could. I moved Sophie and her girl into 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, the kitchen, and closed off the living room and 2 other bedrooms. I decided to just gut the insides and rebuild the floor plan. The very first day, I tore into the wall in the back bedroom closet. There was a metal box in it, embedded in the wall. The box was twice the size of a shoe box, same depth about, but longer and wider and quite heavy. That old house had originally been built in 1898. That box was in an original wall. It had been there over 110 years. I opened the box. I had to cut an old lock off it with a hacksaw. With wonder and awe, I pried open the lid to that old metal box. Inside it were stacks and stacks of $50 and $100 bills. I found 331-ounce gold coins, all minted from 1878 to 1898. They were in new condition, still in their original bank-issued paper rolls. Additionally, I found a silk purse with 63 large diamonds in it, all cut and huge and shining like the day they were put in that bag. There were also other coins, silver dollars, and some very old coins from the early 1800s that I didn't know much about. I was stunned. I sat there on the floor of that old worthless fire trap of a house and wondered what my folks would think about this, a treasure hidden amongst their statement of ruin to me. Back in my hometown, my next-door neighbor, Elliot Grayson, was a retired guy who was really into old coins and money. He bought and sold on eBay all the time, constantly telling me, "Hey James, you gotta see this new silver eagle I bought last week." That type of stuff. I needed to go see him first thing. I took some of that borrowed $2,500 and rented a cozy house for Sophie and Ella. I said, "It's just too much, this remodel. There is too much to do. You guys move in here, and I'll let you move back into my house when I'm done with it. But I can't afford the rent on this new place, James," Sophie said haltingly. She dealt with my dad and knew he wouldn't give her anything, so she was hesitant with me. "I know, Sophie. But this house is going to be too dirty and too much work, and with you in it, it might be unsafe at times. I'll feel better with you all here until I'm done," I told her. I loaded up my box of old coins and cash and took it home. I called Elliot, my neighbor, and asked him if he'd be interested in selling a bunch of old coins and old currency for me. "Sure, what do you got?" he asked, thinking I just had a few old coins I'd found. "I have a lot, Elliot. We need to make an agreement," I said. I wanted him to list them on eBay and get the best price he could. We worked out that he'd get 5% of whatever they brought. He said, well, the best price would be from coin enthusiasts personally, go to coin shows and sell them, and he'd contact coin hounds that he knew. He said, "We could even have an auction if you have enough." He said that tongue-in-cheek, like I'd think I was doing big business. But when he saw the amount and the rarity of what I had, he was stupefied. We sat down and listed each coin and bill. He graded them and then looked them up. As collector's items, I had somewhere close to $2,270,000 worth of old coins and out-of-circulation currency, according to his estimates. They were all in pristine condition, some very old and rare, and worth way more than face value. Elliot said about putting everything in protective sleeves and coin holders. We needed a plan. I felt like I could trust my neighbor. He was born and raised in our town. I knew his folks and I knew him all my life. He was a hard worker and had raised a good family and then was widowed. I'd sooner trust him than just about anyone. It turns out that was a very good move on my part. He realized we needed to be quiet about this find, that we were subject to theft, or even worse if the wrong information became available to the wrong people. Elliot had scrupulous morals and was accountable to me to the penny. He volunteered every single time we got together, the latest facts and figures, inventory level, and what the markets were doing, if anything, on what I had left to sell. He was in tall cotton himself, enjoying this new task. He'd found a new purpose and was making good money for himself on the side. I told him, let's sell it off a little at a time. Sell a little on eBay. Take some to the various coin shows. Take selected items to some of your coin collector buddies and let them bid against one another on them. It worked. Over the next 6 months, we sold about 1/4 of it. Only it brought $1,050,000. We were going to come out great. Meanwhile, I decided to tear the old house down and just build a new one from scratch. It'd be so much better. Now I could afford to buy new materials, and it would be a great project for me for the next year. I bought a small camping trailer and moved it onto the lot, so I had a place to live. Then I just began tearing it down and hauling it off. I finally had to quit my old job. It was just too much. My boss wasn't too happy with me, but I could only stretch so far, and with things looking up like they were, I had to set my priorities. Working for him wasn't one of them, but he'd really done right by me, so I bought his business another van. The kind carpenters use with ladder racks. He was growing and prospering, but was strapped for cash and just couldn't spring for a new truck. It cost me $30,000, but it smoothed out the rough edges between us. After he'd given me the opportunity he had, we were going to be okay. I went over to Sophie and Ella's house and told them what I was planning to do. After 4 years as a widow, and with such limited opportunity in this small town, Sophie was overwhelmed with my plans. They were living on welfare and those government benefits that her young Marine husband had left, which were minimal. She couldn't afford daycare, and there were no jobs in that town, anyhow. She volunteered to help me rebuild her house in exchange for her current rent and the daycare I offered to pay for her daughter when she needed it. I always kept track of her hours and paid her more than the going rate for an apprentice carpenter, deducting her rent and daycare. But she always got some cash extra, so she was tickled with that. I gladly accepted and we got started. Sophie is a pretty girl, down-to-earth, next-door type, nice figure and extremely sweet disposition. She has brown hair, just to her shoulders, brown eyes, and kind of light olive-colored skin. She's 5 feet 5 inches and weighs about 105 pounds. She's lean, but she fills her jeans out in royal fashion, with tight buns, great legs, and such a pretty smile and endearing look in her eyes. When the weather was nice, we'd bring Ella along and keep her in her own fenced-in play area, where we could watch her as we worked. When the weather was bad, we had daycare for her. It gave Sophie a break from her, and it gave us time alone, working on the house. We began to grow closer. I did not, however, share with Sophie about my windfall. She never asked, and I never volunteered where the money was coming from to build this house. She did want to know more about how I came to own the house, about my marriage and divorce. I told her about my divorce and spending a year in jail because of beating my ex-wife's lover and stealing his billfold. I also told her about my parents' disappointment with me and that they left me the house as a sign that our relationship was in shambles. She lowered her eyes and wouldn't look at me when I said that. I asked her if my dad had treated her okay. She refused to look at me and just didn't answer, shrugging her shoulders. That was troubling indeed. We were making good progress on the new house. It had taken us 3 weeks to tear down the old one and haul it off. We were in our 6th month of building on the new one. It was all framed and enclosed, roof on it. It was winter, and we were plumbing, wiring, building, and working away inside all day, every day. We'd been going pretty hard, and hadn't really relaxed any during this entire time. By now, Elliot had sold off more coins, a few at a time, and I was trying to find a place to hide all that cash. I had a little less than $1 million in cash. It was Friday night, and we were both exhausted. I said, "Let's knock off for a couple of days, Sophie, recharge and rest some. We haven't taken any time off, and we need to see something else for a day." "Oh, okay," she replied. "Is something wrong?" "No, I just need a break, and I'm betting you do too. Let's take Ella to the Denver Zoo tomorrow. What do you say?" I said, "Oh, she's never been to the zoo. She'd love it." "I guess I would too, James," Sophie replied. "Okay, we need some supper and then sleep. Go home, and I'll pick you up at 9 tomorrow morning." "Okay." We drove the 180 miles to Denver, stopping in Fort Morgan for a breakfast of sausage, eggs, pancakes, coffee, and juice. Ella just ate off our plates. We were like a family, just us 3 sitting together sharing the day. The zoo was a hoot. Grace was totally in love with the animals. She loved the monkeys. Sophie liked the lions and bears. I liked being with Sophie and Ella. Ella wore out, and I carried her on the last part of the trek around the park. It was late. It's 3 hours back and it's going to be dark. "Let's stay up here in Denver tonight. I'll spring for a couple of rooms and our meals," I offered. "James, you've done so much. I don't know how to thank you. Whatever you want is fine with us. We just love being with you. So you decide and we will love it," Sophie answered. "Tomorrow we'll go by the big aquarium and spend a few hours there, then back. That okay?" I asked. We checked into the La Quinta Inn at Peoria and 44th in Denver. I got adjoining rooms with a door that passes between them, but either room can lock the other one out. We had dinner at the Outback Steakhouse and Sophie and I each had a Foster's. We were tired, and before we said goodnight, Sophie hugged me. We were standing just inside her room by the adjoining door. "Thanks so much, James. You are a wonderful man. We've truly enjoyed the day so much." She stood on her tiptoes and kissed me. It wasn't just a brush. It was a long lip-to-lip kiss with her arms around my neck. My arms circled her waist. Ella stirred and we broke our embrace, looking longingly into one another's eyes. I smiled and stepped into my room as she went to put Ella to bed. I pushed my door closed, but not latched. I went into the bathroom, showered and brushed my teeth. I crawled into bed and was asleep in seconds. It was pitch black. There was no sound at all, but something had moved and awoken me. Ever so gently, I felt a soft caress begin on the side of my stomach. "Is this all right?" she quietly asked. "Oh, this is fine," I replied. "I may not last too long. I haven't been with anyone for a while. That shouldn't be a problem." "I haven't been with anyone in a while, too." She giggled. We made love. Once done, she collapsed onto me. "Oh, James, that was so wonderful. Thank you. You are such a good lover," she cried. "I was just here, sweetie. You are the good lover," I chuckled. The next morning, we left our rooms and were walking down the hallway. The maids were busy in already vacated rooms cleaning away. I thought I recognized one of the ladies. It was my ex-wife, Molly. She looked at me with utter amazement and saw Sophie. Ella and I were together. I nodded my head, said, "Hello, Molly," and walked on down to the office. I whispered to Sophie, my ex-wife. Sophie blushed and squeezed my arm as we walked on by. When we got back, I called Elliot and asked him what he knew about the diamonds. He said he really didn't know much. He dabbled in coins and currencies, but diamonds were out of his league. "Where do I go to find out, then?" I asked. "I'll call a buddy who also does coins. He's bought some of yours already, and see what he says, okay?" "Yep, hurry. I need to know some things," I replied. My phone rang a half hour later. "James?" he asked. "This is James. Who's this?" "Mark Turner. Elliot told me to call you." Said that you may have some diamonds and want to talk about them. Yes, thanks for calling, Mark. Are you a jeweler? Yes, in that I make jewelry. I don't have a Zales store or anything like that. I specialize in making something special as folks kind of can design their own. Then I try and make it, he said. Okay, when can I come see you and where are you located? I asked. I'll be in my shop all week this week. The address is 1250 Cedar Ridge Lane in Boulder. Just come on up and knock. I'll be here, he replied. I'll be there Tuesday, Mark. Thanks. I called Elliot, and he told me he was reputable and would do a great job. You'll be able to see his work when you go into his shop. He has photos of things he's created and probably will have some stuff on hand, too. I told Sophie I had to go up to the Front Range on business on Tuesday and wouldn't be there. She wanted to know if there was work she could be doing while I was gone, and I set her up painting a couple of rooms we had nearly finished. I never let on what was on my mind. I wanted to surprise her. I stopped by Elliot's and picked up my little silk bag of diamonds and then headed for Fort Collins on Tuesday. Mr. Turner, you really do some stunning work, according to these pictures on the wall. They all yours? I asked as I walked around looking at blow-up photos of dozens of rings, pendants, brooches, necklaces, earrings, and bracelets. Yup, I made every one of them, he said. Thanks for appreciating my work. What can I do for you, Mr. Carter? He answered. Well, I'm in love, and I have some loose diamonds and some 22K gold coins. I want you to fashion a stunning gold and diamond engagement and wedding ring for the lady that I love. I said, I'd have to melt the coins. Are they U.S. currency? It would be illegal to melt U.S. currency, Mr. Carter, he said. I figured that. I have a $50 24K gold Canadian maple leaf too. Can you melt that? It is pure gold, purer than the U.S. gold, right? I asked. I can melt that maple leaf, no problem. There is a problem though. Being pure gold, it is soft and will scratch easily. It is best to alloy them with copper or something to make them tougher and less likely to be damaged, he advised. You want a penny then, sir? I inquired. I gave him an old 1803 half-cent, worth $1,300 to use for alloy. We talked several hours about what I wanted for a matching set engagement ring and wedding ring. I showed him the diamonds and I thought he'd poop his pants when he saw them. I told him I needed an appraisal on the diamonds and that I wanted to sell those that we didn't use in the ring if he could assist me in that. I left him as he was examining those diamonds closely. He advised that he'd get started on the rings and that it'd be a couple of months total for him to complete this large task. Take your time and do it right, I advised. 2 months is fine. In just 2 weeks he contacted me. He'd keep 12 of the prettiest, nicest diamonds out for the rings and had a firm offer for the remaining 51. He asked me to drive up to Fort Collins to meet with the potential buyer. I picked Elliot up on the way. The buyer had flown into Denver and then rented a car to drive to Fort Collins. He'd flown in from Tel Aviv, Israel. Apparently, he'd been there in Fort Collins looking at the diamonds a day before Mark Turner had called me. He was closely examining the diamonds and conferring with his company back in Israel, sending photos of the diamonds and seriously considering what we had. Mr. Carter, we have determined that these diamonds were cut right in Tel Aviv in around 1880. They were among the first batch that our diamond cutters ever put out for sale to the public. We were under Arab rule at the time and had to secretly operate our business. These are extremely valuable, not only as diamonds but as historical Israeli gems. These are very valuable diamonds discovered in Africa and transported to what is now Israel. How in the world did you end up with them? He informed, asked, and mused. I inherited a piece of property and the jewels were in a silk purse in the walls of the house. I tore it down, found them, and have been looking to find their appraised value and possibly sell those that I don't want to use in the rings for my future fiancé. I answered honestly. Do you have the silk purse as well? He asked. Yes, of course. Mark, where is it? I asked. A guilty look came over his face. I have it in my safe. I was hoping to hold on to it after our transaction. It has value too, Mr. Carter. Okay, well, let's decide what we have here. Tell me your offer, Mr. I don't believe I got your name. I said to the Israeli gem buyer. My name is Feldman, Mr. Carter. Victor Feldman. I am a representative of Tel Aviv Gems Incorporated, an Israeli entity. We trade in precious stones, especially diamonds all over the world. For your information, many of these same diamonds that you have were plundered by the Nazis and invading hordes of Huns through the past century. We place a very high value on them, sir, he informed me. Victor, I have 51 diamonds for sale, here. What is your offer? I asked. These diamonds have been in the same location since 1898. Sir, I happen to know that there are 63 of the diamonds, and that 12 of them are being held back by Mr. Turner. We'd pay very handsomely for your entire lot, say $12 million, he offered. Mr. Feldman, give me a minute, will you, while I confer with my friend? I asked. I took Elliot across the street to the Village and Pancake House, and we ordered free pie and coffee. It was free pie day, Wednesday if you order any one regular item off the menu. We ordered coffee. What do you think, Elliot? I asked. James, my boy, it's up to you. We have another 3 million, more or less, in coins and currency left to sell. I had no idea these diamonds were so hefty. The Jews seem to want them as a national treasure. I guess you need to make your own mind up, but I am not sure you can get more money, he advised. I mean, what about the 12 diamonds that I had Turner set apart for Sophie's rings? Do I let him have them, or not? I asked. Never mind, I said. I know what I'm going to do. I just needed a moment to clear my thinking. Drink up, let's go back. I rushed him. Mr. Feldman, the 12 diamonds are not part of my offering to you. I've offered the 51, and that is all I have to sell, sir. Please make a fair gesture towards those, if you will, I announced. He didn't like that one bit. He asked to be excused, to call Tel Aviv. In half an hour he came back. Mr. Carter, I appreciate the sentimental value these diamonds may have, especially if you have a special lady in mind for them. But, in the bigger picture, sir, the nation of Israel asks you to understand these are a treasure for us, made cut and fashioned with our own ancestors' hands. It was on these very diamonds that our forefathers learned their craft. We would consider it a high honor if you'd rethink your stance and allow us to purchase all 63 diamonds, and we'll offer you double our previous offer, $24 million, he said wide-eyed. Now, I will have to get back to you. Stay in Fort Collins for a week, will you, while I decide. Meanwhile, I'm calling London and Zurich to see what these things may be worth. Mark, please bundle all that I have. Put them back in the silk purse and give them to me, I ordered. Put the rings on hold for now. I never called Zurich or London. I just left and went home to think. On one hand, these were important to this man, so much so that he was offering more than their actual value because of their significance to the Jews. On the other hand, how could I short my beloved the best money could buy, if I was able to provide it? On yet another hand, a ring is a ring is a ring. Diamonds and gold, whether worth millions or tens of thousands, pretty much make the same point, don't they? Liz Taylor had 8 or 9 husbands, and some of them gave her the most expensive diamonds the world has ever known. It didn't seem to matter. She still divorced them left and right. Mr. Feldman, this is James Carter. I'd like to come back to Fort Collins and meet with you privately. Could we meet in your motel, or in a bank somewhere? I asked. Of course, Mr. Carter. You'll be welcome in my hotel room. I have communications with Tel Aviv direct here, and if some discussion is needed with the big boys back home, we can connect direct, he amiably replied. We settled on $26 million. They got all 63 diamonds. They wired the money to a bank in Zurich. Before I relinquished the diamonds, I confirmed the transaction with the bank. I drove over to Mark Turner's place, and he had drawings of ideas for me for a new set of rings. How did you know I'd sell all those diamonds? I asked. Because you were offered so much more than they're worth, you'd have been foolish to refuse. I don't think you are a fool. That's why, he replied. I picked a design, and he set about to make the rings. It would cost me $50,000. My Sophie would love them. We finished the house a year to the week after we'd started tearing it down. We spent the day moving her and Ella in. When she walked in, all new furniture in every room occupied the space. In the center of the king-sized bed in the master bedroom was a small box lying on an envelope. Sophie was walking around the house, going from room to room looking and sighing her oohs and ahs, remarking about this and that. The new furniture was a surprise, though she'd seen the whole house many times. When she walked into the master bedroom, she saw the box. What's this? She queried. She opened the card. Sophie, I never knew love until I met you. Please marry me. James. She broke out crying and opened the ring box. She nearly choked on her tears at the beauty and size of engagement ring. Unique in all the world, none like it anywhere, nor on any other woman's hand. It was hers as my offering of fidelity and cherished love. I stood back, silent, in the doorway, with Ella in my arms while Sophie processed what was happening. She kept her back to me. She was sobbing, unable to even turn to speak, her body racked with her sobs. Finally, she turned and I saw her face. Her eyes red, tears streaming, mucus flowing from her nose, saliva drooling from her mouth, sobs coming from down deep inside her. I never expected to be happy again. This past year has been the best of my life. I don't deserve a man like you, but I will spend every day of my life making you happy. When this finally comes to a close, you will have known that Almighty God himself joined us, James Carter. I love you and I accept your proposal. Why's mommy crying? Ella asked me. She's just happy, honey, I said. We hugged and wept together there in the master bedroom. We were married the following week by the district court judge in his courtroom. Elliot was my best man and Ella was Sophie's bridesmaid and ring bearer and guest of honor. I adopted Ella and she has my last name, Carter. I told Sophie of our wealth after our wedding night. She was shocked and said she was glad she didn't know before, because nobody could accuse her of gold digging since she knew nothing about the treasure. This was all about love, not for any other reason. Elliot Grayson, my neighbor from my hometown, finally sold the last of the treasures from that old metal box. I cleared a little over $4 million, and he received 5% of that, $200,000 for the coins. I also paid him $1,300,000 for his cut of the diamonds. All told, he received $1,500,000 for his efforts. He was ecstatic. So was I. There's plenty of work for a remodel business in this town, so Sophie and I set up housekeeping in our new house, and I went to work remodeling folks' bathrooms and basements. What a great wife she is. What a great daughter I have. Ella and I have bonded, and she's as much a daddy's girl as her mom is my girl. I did hear that Ryan Hayes, the lawyer, went through drug treatment and failed. He was back on OxyContin, maybe even worse. I think his practice is pretty well closed down, since he can't seem to remember court dates and appointment schedules with potential clients. His wife left him and cleaned him out when I went to jail. Molly, my ex, was still cleaning rooms, the last I heard, over on Madison and 32nd at the Redwood Lodge. At least she was gainfully employed and earning her own way. Life is a struggle, to be sure, and we all have them. What we do with our time here is ours to choose. One day, the choices will not be ours to make. I'm so glad I found and chose Sophie and Ella, and I am so glad they chose me. My inheritance was intended as a slap in my face by two angry parents expressing their disapproval with me. It turned into a blessing financially, though the sting of a parent's disapproval never diminishes. Sophie told me that my dad had tried to molest her when he rented that house to her, offering her free rent in exchange for sex. She had refused his advances and was able, barely, to keep her rent paid. She said it all was just a month or so away from collapse, though, when I came along.